At its core, Elio is the story of a child trying to escape grief and loneliness. Unable to find his place on Earth, he looks to outer space as a final refuge, a place where he might finally feel accepted. It's not Pixar's best film, and to be honest, it doesn't even feel like a typical Pixar movie. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, that unusual tone is what makes it stand out. The film takes a different approach and really shines in its humor, especially with the villain, who looks strong and terrifying on the outside, but turns out to be surprisingly soft and sweet inside. That contrast works beautifully and adds a fun twist to the story. Elio's journey revolves around something simple yet powerful. He doesn't feel understood. No one really tries to see him for who he is, and that leads him to shut down and believe he doesn't belong anywhere. This lack of communication, the gap between what he feels and what others perceive, is the real heart of the story. And that's where the movie really hits, by showing how sometimes the loudest silence comes from those who need to be heard the most. It's also a story about belonging, about the deep need to be important to someone, to feel part of something bigger. The movie brings up that classic question, are we really alone in the universe? But the deeper, more painful reflection is this: what if we feel alone even when we're surrounded by people? One of the film's strongest moments is the parallel between Aunt Olga and the villain Lord Grigan. There's a scene where the villain confronts a clone and says, "A father always recognizes his child." That line echoes in Olga's own instinct. She immediately knows that the boy she's with isn't Elio, it's not her nephew. Even though she doesn't believe in aliens, she feels that something is off. And that shows how deeply she really knows the real Elio, despite all the distance between them. The moment Elio sees his aunt laughing and bonding with his clone is especially heartbreaking. For a second, he wonders if maybe he could have been that kid, more present, easier to connect with, easier to love. But then they finally talk, and Olga says it plainly, she doesn't want a better version of him. She wants him exactly as he is. It's little moments like this that make Elio a deeper story than it may appear at first. A sci-fi tale, yes, but more than that, it's about the space we occupy in someone else's heart. I have to admit, I cried watching Elio. But then again, I cry easily. Still, it wasn't that overwhelming kind of cry like with Coco, where I melt every single time, and I've seen it more than 10 times. With Elio, the emotion hit me, but in a very different way. I understood every character, connected with their pain and silence, but I felt a bit disappointed that it didn't hit me the way other Pixar films usually do. It lacked that emotional punch that makes you cry uncontrollably. Don't get me wrong, the movie isn't bad. It's good, it's fun, visually stunning, and it delivers a beautiful message about loneliness and how sometimes we don't even realize we're not truly alone. But it's also not the best animated movie I've ever seen, and maybe that's the issue. Pixar and Disney in general seem stuck in a formula. They introduce new worlds, but with the same emotional beats. If you line up Elio, Luca, and Turning Red, the pattern is clear. Kids struggling with communication, feeling out of place, trying to figure out who they are while distancing themselves from their parental figures. The difference is just in the setting. One turns into a sea monster, another into a red panda, and Elio wants to go to space. I've seen a lot of people compare Elio to Lilo and Stitch, and at first I didn't really get it. But thinking about it now, the similarities are undeniable. Lilo lost her parents and lives with her older sister. Elio lost his parents and lives with his aunt. Neither of them fits in. They have no friends, and their lives start to change after they meet an alien. The plot structure is nearly identical, different dialogues, visuals, and tone, but the core remains. That said, it's still way better than Lightyear, which honestly felt like a movie that didn't need to exist. I'm bringing it up because it's also set in a space-themed universe, and in that sense, Elio feels more genuine, even if it's not completely original. In the end, Elio is a light film, but the real problem isn't that it's generic. It's that it reuses the same formula so much that it ends up feeling like a copy with minor adjustments. And unfortunately, I think Elio will be one of those movies people forget quickly. Yes, it's pretty. Yes, it has touching moments. But it's not the kind of animated film I'd want to rewatch anytime soon. And from what I've seen, I'm not alone. Many people left the theater with the same feeling. And all of this gets even more complicated when you look at what happened behind the scenes. Elio went through a series of changes during production. The original idea was much bolder. The film was set to be directed by Adrian Molina, the same filmmaker behind Coco. He's openly gay, and his vision included a Latino protagonist with queer-coded traits. It would have been a major step forward for representation in Pixar animations. But throughout development, things changed. After test screenings and internal discussions, the studio leadership pushed for major revisions to the script and characters. Molina left the project after his vision was significantly altered. Elio's mother, originally voiced by America Ferrera, was written out following Ferrera's departure due to the loss of meaningful Latino representation. The role was reworked, and Zoe Saldana came in to voice Elio's aunt instead. As a result, the final version of Elio feels more generic and less distinctive. Traits that hinted at Elio's queer identity, like his interest in fashion or subtle signs of a male crush, were completely removed. That erasure sparked discomfort within the studio and even affected the film's box office performance. It opened well below expectations, earning about $20.8 million during its debut weekend, and received lukewarm reactions from industry professionals. This situation reignited the debate around representation in big studio productions. The attempt to make the film more market-friendly ended up stripping away what made it unique. It's no wonder many people saw wasted potential in Elio. In the end, Elio stands as a reminder of the tension between creativity, representation, and commercial strategy. It could have been a landmark film, but instead it became just another one in the crowd. One thing that stands out in Elio is the clear attempt to give the main character emotional depth. But honestly, it doesn't always land. Personally, I didn't connect with him right away, and I know I'm not alone. Many viewers found Elio to be a difficult character to relate to, even calling him annoying at times. And a lot of that comes down to the changes the film went through during production. These adjustments, while aiming to make him more approachable, ended up stripping away some of his authenticity. It's clear that the animators, directors, and writers are trying to bring something new to the table. The intention to innovate is there. But in the end, everything gets shaped by what the studio believes will be more marketable. And when a story's creative core is compromised in favor of something safer, the result is usually the same. A film that lacks impact, doesn't build a strong fan base, and struggles at the box office. Another point that not many people talk about, but one that carries a lot of weight, is the name Pixar. That name comes with huge expectations. When you hear Pixar, you immediately think of Toy Story, Ratatouille, Finding Nemo, Coco, all iconic, emotionally resonant films. So naturally, when a new Pixar film is released, people expect something on that same level. But Elio, like other recent Pixar titles, doesn't fully carry that signature Pixar identity. It's not a bad movie, far from it. But it doesn't feel like a classic Pixar film either, and that directly affects how it's received by audiences. In fact, if Elio had been released by another studio, it might have been better received. With lower expectations and fewer direct comparisons, the film could have been seen in a different light. But because it comes from Pixar, the bar is set higher, and when the result doesn't live up to that legacy, disappointment takes over. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content on movies, series, and animation, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. See you next time.